Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be unboxing my Tudor Black Bay 58. I purchased my Black Bay 58 from my nearest Tudor authorised dealer, which is Lunds of Belfast, and as you can see the gift bag is branded with Lunds. So I'll unbox the piece and then I'll show you the other items one gets with it. So with the watch they gave me this Tudor collection catalogue which covers the entire collection from 2021 to 2022 inclusive. Nice high definition pictures. And it's a very interesting read because it details the history of Hans Wilsdorf and also the connection between Tudor and Rolex brands. So every model in the collection is detailed, also the technical information about the movements. It gives you the timeline of each model and also high definition pictures of each piece. Now I have reviewed a plethora of Tudor watches, the Pelagos, the Black Bay chronograph, the Black Bay ceramic, the 58, and I've also reviewed various versions of the Black Bay, including the Black Bay ceramic and the Black Bay steel, and also the Black Bay GMT. So one of my favourites of all the Black Bay versions I have reviewed is the Black Bay 58. And back in June 2021, I reviewed the blue version, and I really liked the piece, but it was a very hot piece, and it was being flipped on the grey market at a premium over retail. So it was very difficult to purchase a Black Bay 58 blue back in 2020 when it was released, and still in June 2021 when I reviewed it for Chronext, it was still a very hot piece and it was still very difficult to buy from Tudor authorised dealers. So I didn't want to put my name down on a waiting list as per Rolex, and I decided to just be patient and wait. Now I'm pleased to report that supply has now increased and also demand has decreased, and therefore one can purchase a Black Bay 58 blue from Tudor authorised dealers without a waiting list. I reserved this piece online yesterday and I visited the authorised dealer today, Lunds of Belfast, and I bought the watch. And they actually had three of these in stock. They had the bracelet version, which I bought, they had the leather strap version and the NATO strap version, and I was also offered the black dial or the blue dial version. They had both of those on the bracelet. I opted for the blue dial version. So I paid £3,010, which is the current UK retail price, and as you can see it comes with this cardboard envelope, and I'll show you the receipt. It's always nice to buy a brand new piece from an authorised dealer rather than paying a premium over retail and buying it on the grey market. So as you can see, date of purchase 21st of August 2022 and the retail price £3,010, which is the UK price. Now I say I paid for it. In reality, my channel bought this watch, WR4K. When I started my channel in February 2020, I bought my Black Bay Heritage, which is the 41mm version from Lunds of Belfast, and I paid for that with my own funds. As you can see, the box is also branded with Tudor. But this piece was actually paid for by Google AdSense revenue. I have made 361 videos in the last 2.5 years, and in the last 12 months, my channel has gained over £3,000 in Google AdSense revenue. So this watch was entirely paid for by my WR4K channel. The Google AdSense revenue I have been paid on my 361 videos, which have now gained over 4.5 million views. They paid for this watch, £3,010. So as you can see, watch box has the aesthetically pleasing glossy black Tudor shield. Very similar to a Rolex watch box. It's made from plastic, which is plastic vinyl coated. I actually dislike Rolex watch boxes because they're coated in a green vinyl, which is grained to replicate leather, and it looks like fake leather. This just looks like black vinyl plastic, and I actually think it's more aesthetically pleasing than the abhorrent green vinyl plastic that Rolex are using to replicate leather. Interior is fully upholstered with a black velour fabric, very similar to Rolex watch boxes. The only difference is it doesn't have a flap you can pull down to house the warranty card and the owner's instruction manual, but the interior is finished to a high standard. So the watch sits on a padded pillow cushion, which is exactly the same as Rolex watch boxes, no discernible difference, and they have these red ribbons to aid lifting the other items up. So I'll show you what the watch comes with. This is the plastic guarantee card. The watch is covered by a 5-year international warranty. For security, I've blacked out the serial number, but you can see the reference number of the Black Bay 58 Blue is 79030B. And the date of purchase is today, the 21st of August 2022. So it's nice to buy a brand new piece. Now, Tudor authorised dealers are instructed by Tudor SA Geneva to remove all the protective films, and they also have to resize the bracelet to fit the customer's wrist before they're allowed to release the watch from the AD. Now, fortunately, I have an 8-inch wrist, so they didn't remove any of the links. It has the full set of 13 full-size links, but they did remove all the protective films. And the reason why Tudor authorised dealers are instructed to do that is to try and prevent collectors flipping the watch on the grey market immediately on Chrono24 or eBay, covered in the protective films as a brand new unworn piece. The idea is by removing the protective films, it makes it less attractive to sell it as an unworn piece. But it doesn't actually work because they still get flips on the grey market. So one also gets this owner's instruction manual, high definition pictures, clear concise diagrams. The instructions are in English. It details the operation of the Kinesi movement with a 70-hour power reserve. And lastly, one also gets this guarantee booklet, which also details the official chronometer certification by COSC and the worldwide service network, all the Tudor authorised dealers throughout the world. So nice to get this certification. The Kinesi movement is COSC chronometer certified to -4 to +6. My one's running at +1. Which is excellent. So I've previously reviewed this piece in June 2021, so I'm not going to go through the dimensions and the specifications. I've already covered that in my full review. But what I am going to do is explain why I bought a Black Bay 58, because I've previously owned the Submariner, the current version, the 124060. I owned a 2021 piece and I sold it this year. I've become disenchanted with the Rolex brand and also the Submariner in particular because of its brand image. Rolex really is now an investor brand. It's not bought by collectors. The majority of collectors that buy a Rolex Submariner don't buy them because they like the watch. They buy it because it appreciates rapidly in value exponentially. And they buy a Submariner at retail and then they flip it to a grey market dealer at profit, and then the grey market dealer inevitably sells it on again at a further premium. And I really dislike that image that the Submariner and Submariner date now have. And really, the market changed with the ceramic era from 2010 onwards. Prior to that, the 16610 Submariner date and the 14060M, which was the Submariner, they didn't have that image. They were simply a well-made tool watch. And really, from the ceramic era onwards, from 2010 onwards, the watches began to appreciate rapidly, and they began to be flipped at a profit over retail. When I bought my first Submariner 24 years ago, the 14060M, that wasn't the case. I actually paid less than retail. I bought it from a grey market dealer, and at the time the 14060M was £3,000. That was the retail in the UK. I paid £2,500, and it took me 2 years, from 19 to 21 years old as a university student, to save up the £2,500 needed to buy a pre-owned 14060M with box and papers, and it was an as-new piece. And when I bought it from the grey market dealer, they pulled out a tray and I was offered several 16610s, several 14060s and several 14060Ms. I could have bought it with or without a box and papers. I opted for a box and papers piece in brand new condition, and it was £500 less than at a Rolex authorised dealer. They were freely available when I bought it. I could have walked into an authorised dealer and bought it. There was no waiting list nonsense. There was no expressions of interest list. Anyone could walk into an authorised dealer. They had the 16610 and the 14060M in the window. You could walk in and buy the watch. So times have changed. In the last 24 years, the market has changed dramatically. And the difference is one doesn't buy a Submariner or Submariner date under the retail price from grey market dealers. They sell the watches at a significant premium. And for example, I bought my 124060 Submariner from a grey market dealer in the Netherlands, Kramer Watches, and I also bought my Rolex Oyster Perpetual 124300 from Kramer Watches because I simply couldn't get one from my authorised dealer. Now, back in 2020, when I started my channel in February, I bought my Black Bay Heritage, which is the 41mm version, from Lunds of Belfast, which is my nearest Rolex and Tudor authorised dealer. No waiting list. I reserved the piece online, I visited the authorised dealer and I bought the watch. And that was back in February 2020, and I did the same again with this Black Bay 58. I reserved it online yesterday and I collected the watch today in person. And this is what I like about Tudor versus Rolex above all else. There is no waiting list nonsense. You can reserve the piece online, walk into the authorised dealer, pay for the watch, put it on wrist and walk out with it. That is exactly how it should be. That was the case with Rolex 24 years ago when I bought my first Submariner. So I really dislike that about the Submariner. One cannot just buy them from an authorised dealer. One has to go to a grey market dealer and pay a premium. Tudor really is better for that reason. You can buy the pieces, they are accessible. Now, with regards to the other things I like and dislike about it, this isn't the perfect watch because I prefer watches to have an oyster bracelet rather than rivet links, but however, I actually prefer this bracelet to a Submariner bracelet for the simple reason it has female pivoted end links which give a better fit than the male end links, and I will also level this criticism at my Oyster Perpetual 41 which had male end links. Female pivoted end links give a better fit, they really should be the industry standard. There's something else about this Black Bay 58 clasp which is superior to the Submariner and Submariner Date glide lock. If you look closely, you can see it has 4 white ceramic ball bearings. Now, on the glide lock, it has 2 oyster steel 904L grade ball bearings. Now, the problem with oyster steel is, like all stainless steel, it wears down in time. So, in 20 years' time, the ball bearings are going to wear out, and therefore the flip lock and the glide lock is going to be sloppy. But with this Black Bay 58, it has 4 ceramic ball bearings, 2 internally and 2 externally. The 2 internal ones snap the body of the clasp shut, and the 2 external ceramic ball bearings snap the flip lock shut. Now, ceramic is harder than oyster steel and therefore lower friction as well, so it's not going to wear out. In 20 years' time, this clasp is still going to snap shut, the same as a brand new one. Now, there is a negative to it. It only has 3 micro adjustment holes, and as always, I'm critical of this. It's a shame that Tudor don't have 4 micro adjustment holes because there are no half links in the bracelet. It only has full links. Now, on a positive note, this does have enough links to fit my 8-inch wrist. However, the Submariner doesn't. Now, I had to order 2 extra links for my Oyster Perpetual 41, and I also had to order 2 extra links for my Submariner 124060 because with my 8-inch wrist it was too tight and I couldn't use the glide lock. I had to have the bracelet on maximum extension, so it negated having a glide lock. I wasn't able to use it. So I put 2 extra links in, and then I was able to use the glide lock, and I put 2 extra links in my Oyster Perpetual, and then I was able to use it with the EasyLink extension. As you can see, this Black Bay 58 does actually fit my 8-inch wrist. I can just fit my index finger underneath the bracelet and clasp. But I have asked my authorised dealer, Lunds of Belfast, to order an additional link, and I'm going to put it in because I prefer a slightly looser fit. And the other reason is for symmetry, because this has an odd number of links. It has 13 links. They put 6 links on one side and 7 links on the other, so the clasp always sits off centre. It doesn't have 6 and 6, or it doesn't have 7 and 7. So I'm going to add an additional link on this side to have 7 links on one side, 7 links on the other, and that will make the clasp sit centrally on my wrist bone. Same problem with this Submariner. They have an odd number of links, they have an even number of links. It's 12 full-size links, but they put 5 on one side and 7 on the other side. They put 7 on one side for the glide lock to be able to move in and out, but the 5 link side is always too short, and I always have to move one link over from this side to that side of the glide lock clasp to get the glide lock clasp to sit centrally, and then add an additional 2 links in order to make the glide lock function. With my Oyster Perpetual, again, it had 5 links on one side and 7 on the other, 12 full links, but I had to add 1 link to this side to make the clasp sit symmetrically over the wrist bone. So, dislike the orientation of Rolex bracelets. This is better because we have 6 on one side, 7 on the other, and when I add an additional link to it, it's going to be a looser fit, which I prefer. So as you can see, female pivoted end links give a better fit than male end links. Now, there's something I really like about the Black Bay Heritage and the Black Bay 58 with regards to the case. This is better looking, and it's better looking for a simple reason. It has bevels on the edge of the case. The bevels on the edge of the case mark the transition between the tops of the lugs and the flanks. Now, with the pre-ceramic era of Submariner, the 14060M, and also the Submariner Dates, the 16610 respectively, the Submariner Classic case had bevels machined, as you can see, same as this, and the bevels mark the transition between the tops of the lugs and the mirror polished flanks. On the Submariner Classic case, the tops of the lugs had a grained finish. One could see the grains of the stainless steel, and that contrasted with the mirror polishing, so the bevel marked that transition. With the Submariner Super case, the 116610LN, it had very thick square lugs, but it just had a sharp edge as per the current Submariner, the 124060. Rolex deleted the bevel, and they made a mistake because the bevel gives an optical illusion. It actually makes the lugs look thinner than they are. Now, they did slim down the lugs on the current Submariner, but they increased the size of the head of the piece to 41 and they increased the lug width to 21, and that really did negate the improvement of slimming down the supercase lugs. They should have added the bevel as per the Heritage and also this Black Bay 58, because I love the way it catches the light, and that optical illusion makes the lugs look thinner than they actually are. So something I really liked about the 16610 Submariner Classic case, and something I liked about my Black Bay Heritage. Now, I previously owned the Black Bay Heritage, the 41mm, and the one thing I disliked about it was the tall, thick slab sides to the flanks. It always sat on wrist and it looked top heavy due to the tall flanks. Now, with this Black Bay 58, which is 12mm, it's a thinner piece, as you can see. It doesn't have the tall slab sides of the 41mm version, it's a thinner piece. The flanks to the case are correctly proportioned, and as you can see, it's a snug fit. Female pivoted end links for a good fit. I also prefer the 20mm lug width. On the 41, it's 22, and therefore the taper on the bracelet is wider all the way down to the flip lock. With this, it's 20 to 16, which is the perfect taper. So although I dislike the rivet link bracelet, I would prefer an oyster bracelet. The fit of the 58 is superior. 47.5 lug to lug is not perfection. 48 would be perfection, but it's only half a millimetre too short, which is acceptable. The other thing I like about it is the bezel, both in terms of execution and also finishing. Now, as you know, I own an homage to this. I own the SN004G. And I actually prefer the gear tooth bezel. I previously owned another homage to it, the 008, and that used the coin edge bezel, but this is something that Tudor do better than any other brand. No one can come close to Tudor with regards to how fine the coin edge teeth are on their bezel. And they don't have sharp points to the tops of the bezel. The coin edge bezel doesn't have sharp teeth. On the 008, the San Martin, it does have sharp teeth, and it's the one thing I disliked about it. It wasn't pleasant to use the bezel because the index finger and thumb, it felt sharp. With a Tudor coin edge bezel, it feels smooth. The teeth are grippy and tactile, but they don't have that sharp edge to the top of the teeth. And I actually prefer this to the scalloped bezel used on the Submariner. On my 124060, it's something I disliked about it. It's something that Rolex fanboys will never admit. The scalloped bezel on the Submariner and Submariner Dates are sharp. The teeth are too sharp. They dig into the skin. It's not a pleasant bezel to use. The other thing is the execution isn't good because the ratcheting mechanism, the 120 clicks, are too light. With a Tudor bezel, it has 60 clicks versus 120, as per the Pelagos. Now, it does take some getting used to because it does feel heavier. The ratcheting mechanism has louder audible clicks, which I actually like. The 60 clicks feel heavier, the indexing feels more solid, no lateral side-side play, no back play. But the 60 clicks give a more vintage aesthetic. Originally, the Tudor Submariner and the Rolex Submariner from the 1950s, they predated the use of ratcheting mechanisms, clicking bezels. They had a bidirectional friction bezel, and then later Rolex started to use 60-click unidirectional bezels, and then contemporary 120-click that you're all familiar with. But so 60-click really is more of a vintage feel. I like it, perfect alignment, needless to say. And the coin edge finishing plus the 60 clicks with a heavy mechanism really does give it a nice feel. I like the sound of it, I like the feeling of it, and I prefer it overall to the Submariner. Now, with regards to the insert, aluminium is not as scratch resistant as ceramic, but I actually think the aluminium bezel insert, which is midnight blue, is more aesthetically pleasing, and also the minute ticks and the Arabic numerals in silver are more legible. I dislike Rolex Cerachrome bezels because they use platinum, and the platinum has a dull matte finish to it. It looks like silver matte paint. And I'll explain how Rolex make their Cerachrome bezels. They heat up the ceramic to the very high temperature of 2500 degrees Celsius, and then they sinter platinum particles into the engraved minute ticks and the Arabic numerals into the Cerachrome, and then they let the ceramic cool down from 2500 degrees Celsius to room temperature, and that bonds the platinum into the grooves and the engravings in the Cerachrome. But the platinum has a dull matte finish. It doesn't look shiny in silver. And I actually prefer white paint or alternatively BGW9 Superlume Nova on ceramic bezels because it looks whiter in daylight and therefore more legible. The Tudor Pelagos bezel, which is fully lumed, looks better than the Cerachrome bezel used on the Submariner and Submariner Date. So I actually prefer the metallic finish of this midnight blue aluminium bezel. Now the other thing to note is it doesn't matter if this gets scuffed or scratched because aluminium bezel inserts are inexpensive to replace at Tudor service centres. That isn't the case if you bang your Submariner off something or drop it and this Cerachrome chips or cracks. Because it's inlaid with platinum, they're very expensive to replace. So I actually prefer having an aluminium bezel insert, although it's softer, because if one scuffs or scratches it, they're inexpensive to replace. The other thing I like is aluminium bezel inserts wear and they fade. So in 20 years' time, this is going to develop a patina. The midnight blue is going to fade to a lighter blue, as per the 1970s Tudor Snowflake Submariners. And I really like that aspect about vintage pieces that are 20 plus years old. They look 20 years old. The negative of modern pieces with ceramic is never going to degrade, it's never going to patina, it's never going to lighten in tone, so therefore a 20-year-old Submariner is still going to look new. I prefer vintage pieces to develop a patina. Now of course this uses Superlume Nova, it doesn't use tritium as per the Snowflake Submariner, and that was something I liked about 1970s tritium dial and handsets on the Tudor Snowflake Submariner, because now they have a lovely cream or peach tone. The lume develops a patina. Tritium was succeeded by lume Nova, and then that was succeeded by Superlume Nova. Now, I've done a lume test in my review, but I'll do another one in this unboxing video because I want to discuss this. I think Rolex made a mistake when they switched to using chromolites because they changed from Superlume Nova to chromolite. Superlume Nova used to be green on the Submariner, on the 16610. On the 116610 LN, the chromolite was blue as per BGW9. One thing I like about this Black Bay 58 is the lume is green. It doesn't look like blue BGW9 Superlume Nova. It looks more like C3 Superlume Nova. And I think green lume matches the aesthetic of a vintage piece. This looks like a vintage Tudor piece from the 1950s, such as their Tudor Submariner. So I think green is better looking for vintage aesthetic pieces. Now with the Rolex Submariner, the ceramic versions, they use chromolite which glows blue. I've never liked blue as much. I think that green is more aesthetically pleasing. It looks more like tritium, which was used in the 1970s, and I think that the green tone of the lume is just absolutely gorgeous on this Black Bay 58. Just gorgeous. Now I just want to give you the background of the snowflake hands. Originally the Marine Nationale combat divers used the Tudor Snowflake Submariner in the 1970s, and back then, the Tudor Submariner and the Rolex Submariner used the same case, the same bezel, the same bracelets. The only difference between the Tudor Submariner and the Rolex Submariner were the movements. Tudor Submariners used Fleurier movements, and then they were later succeeded by ETA movements, and they now use Knissi movements in their Black Bay. But the Marine Nationale divers preferred the Snowflake handsets to the Mercedes handsets because they thought they were more legible. And so therefore, Tudor opted for the Snowflake handsets, and they've now become an iconic aspect. They're used on the Pelagos and the Black Bay. I prefer them. I think the performance is better, and I like the fact it has that iconic aspect right from the early Tudor Snowflake Submariners in the 1970s. So overall, I think it's a better looking piece than the Submariner. The feel-good factor is better, and most of all, it doesn't have the waiting list nonsense. I was able to walk into an authorised dealer and purchase this piece today. I could reserve it online yesterday. One cannot do that with a Rolex. So I prefer Tudor as a brand, and I think that really, if you're considering buying a Rolex Submariner, also consider the Black Bay and the Black Bay 58, because you don't have to go through the waiting list nonsense, and you don't have to pay a premium over retail and buy them from a grey market dealer. So I hope you've liked my unboxing of my Tudor Black Bay 58. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.